Welcome back to the Core Skills Podcast, where we dive into the essential skills that fuel success in both our personal and professional life. I'm Ms. Sherman, and I'm thrilled to have you here with me again today. Okay, so a few episodes ago, I told a story about receiving feedback that led me to solve a problem at work. And I told you at that time that I would tell you the rest of the story. So here we go. I was a brand new medical assistant, my first job. It was my 30-day evaluation. So I had a meeting with the two doctors who handled all of the HR stuff. As I think I said in that episode, I'm sure they gave positive feedback, but I only heard, or at least I only remembered, the one negative piece of feedback. They told me that I was moving too slowly, backing up the schedule. So same problem that I solved in the problem solving. If you haven't heard that episode, go back to the problem solving episode and you'll hear how everything turned out. Anyway, so they gave me that feedback. They told me I was moving too slowly. The schedule was getting backed up. And I knew I wasn't as fast as the other medical assistants. They'd all been there for 5 years or more. One of them had been there for 25 years. I didn't really think that was completely fair to compare me to the others after a month. So I didn't think that I was that slow. I mean, I knew I was slower than they were, but I didn't think that it was a problem. So the feedback, it hurt my feelings. It really did not feel good. And they didn't offer any suggestions. There was no helpful feedback. There was nothing constructive. In fact, I hadn't worked with or assisted either of those doctors. And so they really didn't know what the issue was. I asked if they could give me some examples or give me some more specifics or if they had any suggestions, and they really didn't. So I took it personally. I took it kind of hard. I wasn't quite sure where it was coming from. And like I said, it didn't seem completely fair that I was being judged or compared against medical assistants with a minimum of 5 years experience. But I held it together, at least until break time. And then I went to my car and I cried. So then I thought about it. I sat in my car for a little while, and after a minute, I collected myself and I realized that this feedback really wasn't helpful because I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I really didn't know what the problem was. It wasn't specific enough. It was too general, and I had no idea how to fix it. So I went to the doctor that I had been assisting since day one. I had been assigned to this particular doctor. So we'd work together a lot. And I asked him if I could have a meeting at the end of the day. And he gave me kind of a surprised look and he said, sure. I don't know what he thought, what I wanted to meet about, if he was worried. He didn't look too sure that he wanted to have this meeting, but he agreed. And so at the end of the day, I went and sat in his office and I told him that I had had my evaluation meeting and the feedback that I had received. And he was so quick to clarify that it hadn't come from him. He had not complained. He agreed, though, like I already knew, that we did get backed up at the end of the morning and at the end of the day, and that I took longer with patients than the other medical assistants. But he also said he really appreciated how detail-oriented I was, how diligent, and that I was really careful to do things correctly. And he always knew that I wasn't going to make errors and that I would catch errors before they were made, no matter whose errors they were, because I was triple checking everything. I was making sure that I was doing everything correctly. I was getting to know the patients really well. And he appreciated all that. And he was very clear that he did not want me to go faster if it meant losing that. And he expected, as I had, that speed would come with experience. And that helped so much because now I knew exactly what was working well and where I could focus. I knew what he needed from me and how I could better help things move more quickly with him. And then, like I said, you can hear the rest of the story if you haven't already in the problem solving episode. So, feedback, it can be a game changer, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in a relationship, or you're working on personal development, which might be why you're listening to this podcast. But giving and receiving it well, that is a skill. We have to build skills. We have to practice. We are not born knowing how to do this. So we're going to break it down. Trust me. Why does feedback matter? It helps us improve and grow, right? It's information. It's a valuable resource. And feedback lets us know how others are thinking or feeling or responding to our behavior, something that we did or said or didn't do or didn't say. Feedback builds stronger relationships and trust. Being open to feedback with the intention of learning and improving really does build trust with others, especially in your personal relationships, but even in working relationships. If your coworkers or supervisors know that you are open to learning from and receiving feedback, then that opens up the communication and really does build a stronger relationship. Feedback encourages open communication in the workplace and in your personal life. I tend to focus a lot on work, but all of these skills are just as valuable in your personal relationships. So, what's the difference between constructive feedback and criticism? Because we tend to hear them the same way, and we have to be careful. We're going to learn how not to deliver them the same way. Constructive feedback is given with the intention of helping the other person do better. You want them to learn and grow and improve in the future. Criticism is given to make the other person feel bad about what they've done in the past. So criticism tears down, where constructive feedback builds up. Constructive, construction, building, ooh, words. So let's first talk about how you can accept feedback gracefully. Because although I think giving feedback is hard, accepting feedback can be more challenging. You can learn to accept it gracefully, even when it isn't given in a constructive way. It might come at you as criticism, but you can learn to respond to it as constructive feedback. The most important thing is to remain calm and listen to learn rather than to defend yourself. Sounds kind of similar to our good communication and our conflict resolution skills, right? So those skills that you've been working on for the past few weeks are going to come in really handy as you build your skills in receiving feedback. Don't take it personally. Even if it comes out, if it feels like or it sounds like it is a personal attack or a criticism, rather than constructive feedback, you get to decide how you receive the information, not the sender. You can focus your attention on the information about decisions made, miscommunications, behaviors, because those are the things you can work on, right? They aren't personal flaws. Focus your attention. It's a skill I have had to build and work on. I I had worked on it for a long time before the situation where I was receiving feedback that day, and it still doesn't make it feel good or make it easy, but it makes it easier to be calm in the moment and not take it personally. Ask questions. Ask to clarify the information that's being shared with you. Something like, can you explain what you mean by blank? Ask for specific examples so that you know exactly what it is they're seeing and what you can work on. Ask, can you give me an example of a time when I blank? Just be careful, be sure that it's a genuine request for clarity and not a challenge. Not a, oh yeah, give me one example, right? That's very different than, can you share with me an example, a specific an example of a time when this happened? That's a request for clarity. Restate what you heard or reflect back the message that you're getting, the interpretation of their feelings about it. Again, these are the communication skills that we talked about, coming back. It all builds on each other. So an example was restating something. So my decision to reply to the customer without consulting the manager first resulted in us losing a valued customer. And in the future, I should always let the manager handle a customer complaint. This is what you heard. They might have taken 10 minutes to get that out. You're synthesizing it and just restating it back. This is the behavior I did that was incorrect. This is the result. This is the correction I should make. And hopefully they've given you all of that information. If not, if they've only told you what you did wrong, just restate that. And then ask for clarification on the rest. A reflection might be, I'll use a personal example instead of a work example. I'm hearing that it caused you to worry when I went out for drinks after work without letting you know where I was or that I'd be late. This gives feedback to the person, the other person, letting them know you understood, you heard the message correctly or not, and then they can clarify that you understood how your actions affected them or what the outcome or result of your actions or decisions were, and what they want you to do differently in the future. And with additional supportive feedback for them. Thank them for taking the time to share this information with you, and let them know that you will make an effort to learn from this experience and improve in the future. Even if someone is being critical, even if they're not giving you constructive feedback, maybe they're being mean, they're criticizing you, they're not intending it to be feedback, they're trying to hurt you. You can thank them for letting you know how it affected them. You can say, thank you for letting me know how that affected you. That will not be what they're expecting. And it can diffuse a charged situation. Ooh, conflict resolution strategy. Uh, giving that feedback to you may have been really challenging for them. Maybe they avoid conflict at all costs. They're an avoider, right? But this felt important enough that it needed to be addressed. Or maybe it's their job to give you feedback, and it's not a job they're good at. Maybe they haven't built the skills of giving good constructive feedback, so they didn't give it well. But you can acknowledge that you appreciate it, and that you're going to learn from it. You're going to use that. And then, do take some time to honestly reflect on the information later. Maybe you didn't see the situation the same way, or it wouldn't have bothered you, but now you know it bothered them. This is an opportunity for you to learn something about yourself and how your behaviors or words or decisions affect others. So feedback is a learning opportunity. If we can look at it as a learning opportunity, accept it as a learning opportunity, we can take our personal feelings out of it and use it to learn and improve. And I'm guessing if you're listening to this podcast, you want to learn, you want to improve. These are opportunities for you to do that. Now you might go looking for feedback. So how do you give effective feedback? We want to be sure that when we give feedback, we're giving it in a way that is going to be constructive, that is going to be useful. There's actually two types of feedback. There's constructive feedback and supportive feedback. Constructive feedback is given to address something that needs to change, right? Some behavior that is unacceptable or inappropriate or ineffective that you want the other person to work on or to change or to stop doing in the future. Supportive feedback is given to reinforce a behavior or a skill that was done well, was done correctly, and you want to see more of that in the future. So supportive feedback is helpful too, letting someone know, yes, this is the right way to do it, or this is how I need you to speak to me or to behave. When you're giving feedback, it's important to be specific and clear. Feedback should be substantive. Avoid vague statements like, you can do better, or you did great. Neither of those tells the other person what they could do better, how they could do better, or what they did well and what they should keep doing. It's meaningless. Instead, say, next time, try structuring your report with a clear introduction. Right? If that's the part that needs to change, give that specific feedback. If it's supportive feedback, still needs to be clear. I appreciate the way you explained the procedure. Use the feedback sandwich. This is a pretty common one, so you may have heard this before. You are sandwiching, they used to actually call it the criticism sandwich, but feedback sandwich, because it shouldn't be criticism. So you're sandwiching constructive feedback between positive feedback and more positive feedback. So the first positive feedback is something supportive, acknowledging something that was done well. What worked? What went right? What do you appreciate? Or even a thank you for something. Someone always does something right. Nobody's doing everything wrong. Find something that you do want to acknowledge, that you do want them to continue doing in the future. The constructive feedback is focused on something that requires attention, right? Something that needs improving in the future, something you want to change. The third statement can either be more positive feedback, something else that they did well, or it can be an encouragement. Encouragement is feedback that's used to stimulate or build confidence of the receiver, that you believe in them fully, that you know they're going to do better. You believe in them, right? You're building them up. And hopefully, if feedback is given this way, they won't walk out only remembering the one negative, the constructive part. And hopefully the constructive part won't feel negative if it's really delivered well. I use the feedback sandwich. I teach my students the feedback sandwich, and I have them give each other feedback when their classmates are doing a presentation, for example. I teach them how to give their classmates good, clear, specific, constructive, and supportive feedback using the sandwich. And I'll give them the form. Write a statement. What did they do well? What could they do better? What is something you learned, or what is something you appreciate, or something? Another positive. And the reason that I have them practice this is because we do have to give feedback on the job, whether it's to a patient, a coworker, a doctor, a supervisor. Yeah, we absolutely have to give feedback to our superiors too. Not only do we get feedback from them, we have to give them feedback. And it's important to know how to give that feedback in a way that is going to preserve or build the relationship rather than damage it. I have worked with many doctors. Doctors are humans and they make errors, they make mistakes, especially very busy doctors with a large patient load trying to get many things done. And they count on their medical assistants, nurses, the staff to help make sure that they don't make errors or that those errors are caught. And you want to give that feedback in a way that it's heard and that it doesn't make them defensive or angry. Doctors have big egos, which is totally understandable. It takes someone with a big ego to make it through medical school and to take the responsibility of other people's health or even life into their hands. It takes an ego. You've got to be a certain type of personality to do that. You have to really strongly believe in yourself. Ego's not necessarily a bad thing, but we just have to be careful how we approach and give feedback to other people. Another method is keep, stop, start. And this is similar to the feedback sandwich, but the feedback that's given is very specific. And I learned this technique when I was working at the Stanford School of Medicine as a standardized patient. So as quote unquote patients, we were examined by medical students, and our job was to give them feedback and to give it to them in this specific way so that they could learn how what they said or their behaviors or whatever would affect the patients that they were seeing, but also build their confidence, not tear it down. Because at that point, those egos are still pretty fragile. I mean, these were first year medical students. They were brand new, future doctors and physicians' assistants, but just beginning their journey. My messages were also a requirement of the Keep, Stop, Start. We were absolutely expected to use iMessages. So it was given in a way that they would understand how it was affecting us as the patient. So an example of a keep might be, I felt heard when you repeated back what I had told you about my symptoms. So you're letting them know what they did well and how you felt, how that thing that they specifically did well impacted you. An example of a stop, I felt confused when you abruptly went from asking about my medical history to asking if I felt safe in my home without explaining the purpose of the question. Because it was really important they were being taught to segue and to give context before they asked the really personal questions about safety in the home, use of alcohol, drugs, sexual activity, those kinds of things that are very probing, but really important information. But rather than just kind of springing that on, going from have you ever had surgery to do you feel safe in your home, it can be a little jarring and it can make patients feel very defensive or they've been singled out in some way, even though it's questions we ask everyone. An example of a start would be I would feel more comfortable in the future if you warned me that the stethoscope was going to be cold before you put it on my skin. So keep something they did well, how it affected you. Stop something they shouldn't do in the future and how it affected you. And a start something they should do in the future and how that would make you feel better, how that would impact you. So I like that. It was a good method as well. I think it works well in certain circumstances. I think it's kind of specific. I do sometimes use that with my students to give them feedback. Sometimes I use the feedback sandwich. Sometimes I use keep, stop, start. It depends on the specific task or skill that they're learning. Focus on the behaviors and not the person. So if you're giving feedback, you don't want to say to somebody, you always mess this up, or you blew this again, or you did this, you did that. Then it's focusing on the person. It's going to raise the defenses and make it harder for them to take that feedback. Instead, you focus on the behavior. What was the behavior? You could say, I noticed this approach could be improved upon. Consider timing and delivery when you're giving feedback. Make sure that you're giving feedback privately, and whether this is in the workplace, to your partner, to your child, whomever you're giving feedback to, we don't want to give it in front of others and make them feel singled out or self-conscious or embarrassing them. It also makes anyone else who's witnessing that feel very uncomfortable. So find a private space, a private time. It's also important that you make sure you're calm before you give feedback. Don't give feedback in the heat of the moment. That's when it's going to come out as criticism or blame rather than constructive. I know we don't often think about when we're telling our partner or someone in our personal life, we're telling them something that we didn't like. That we're not really thinking about it as feedback. We're thinking, I need to tell them not to do this, right? We don't think about it the same way. But if you reframe it as feedback and remember to use the feedback techniques, the sandwich or the keep, stop, start, or whatever, then you can give them the information about what it was that they did and how it affected you. Remember those I statements and avoid it turning into an argument. I also want to say, don't pounce on your partner the minute they walk in the door after work because you made a nice dinner and they were late and they didn't call and let you know they were going to be late, and now dinner's cold, and I get the feelings, right, that you're feeling upset or hurt or disrespected. But if you pounce on them the minute they walk in the door, it's unlikely they're going to want to come home tomorrow. They're going to find more excuses to be late, to not come home on time, because who wants to walk in the door and get jumped on, even if they deserve it, right? That's not what it's about. You want the behavior to change while the relationship is maintained or improved. So this is a good time to do what you would do at work. If you had to give feedback to someone at work, you want to say, hey, I'm going to need a few minutes of your time, or can you meet with me? Can you come into my office? Can I come into your office? You're going to find some time, some private space, and have this conversation. Same with your partner. You love this person. You care about this person. Ask them, hey, after dinner, can I talk to you about something? Or I know you need a little time. You got to change clothes and settle in, but there is something I want to talk about when you have some time. They might say, well, let's just talk about it now, or talk to me while I change clothes, or okay, give me 5 minutes. Or they might say, it's been a really hard day. Can we talk about this tomorrow? And respect that. That doesn't mean you forget about it. That means you're going to have to now use your conflict resolution skills and come to them with this difficult conversation when you're calm. Say, okay, I know you weren't up to having this conversation last night. And, you can use that technique of, I want to leave this or end this conversation with us understanding and respecting each other. Or I want this conversation to end with us feeling more connected. Or I want to end this conversation feeling understood. Then give them the feedback and use the techniques, right? Start with something positive. I appreciate how hard you work to support this family. Or I appreciate that your job is so important to you. You're so dedicated to your customers, your patients. And then, right? Not but, and. But that negates everything we just said. You say, I appreciate how hard you work, but that just takes away the positive statement that you just made. I appreciate how hard you work, and I need you to appreciate how hard it is to plan a nice meal and get it timed just right, and I need you to appreciate how important it is to spend time and have dinner as a family. In the future, could you save some energy at the end of the day for us? Could you make a point of leaving the office on time? Or if all you need is for them to let you know that in the future, could you please just text me if it looks like you're going to be late? Just so I know what's going on. That would probably result in a much better outcome than the pouncing on them or complaining or yelling. I'm not saying I haven't made this mistake. I'm saying I have learned from making this mistake. Be open to discussion. We want this to be a two-way conversation. We don't want it to turn into a conflict, but we want to allow the other person to give us feedback as well. We need to be open to hearing their response and to learn as much as we teach. We talked about in conflict resolution last week. The other person may just have a different perspective, and understanding that perspective can help us, right? We're getting the feedback. We are telling them we want something to change. Maybe there's something about the reason they did things a certain way that we don't understand. We need to be open to learning that information and to it being a discussion. All right. My challenge for you this week, because you're here to build skills, right? You got to practice skills. So this week, I want you to ask someone for feedback. Whether it's at work, in your personal life, ask for some feedback. It could be on a specific project. It could be on a habit that you have, on a skill that you have been working on. Maybe one of the skills you've been working on in the past weeks, listening to this podcast. Ask them for feedback. Say, I've been listening to this podcast and I've really been working on my communication skills. I wanted to ask you for some feedback. Have you noticed an improvement? If there's an opportunity, and if you have a family or you work with someone, trust me, you are giving feedback all the time. Be aware of when you're giving feedback and try practicing using the feedback sandwich technique. Make sure that you're calm, that it's private, it's not in the heat of the moment, and that it's a conversation. And of course, I want to hear your stories, your experiences with feedback, either some past feedback when feedback went wrong, when feedback went right, a success story, or something you tried this week and how it went. I would love to hear that. Of course, I would love for you to follow the podcast, subscribe, download, like it, leave a comment. Every bit of engagement is helpful. It really helps others find the podcast. So please leave me some feedback in a comment, a like, a dislike, thumbs up, thumbs down, one way or the other. Tell me how you feel about it. Uh, Leave a review of the podcast. I would love to read reviews. That would be awesome feedback for me and really, really helpful for me. I want to know how I can improve this podcast. What topics do you want to hear more about? What about the format? Are these too long, too short, too many personal stories? You want more personal stories? You like the tips? I would love to get feedback. What you like, what you don't like, and how this Core Skills podcast might be benefiting you. So send me an email with your stories at Ms.Sherman@gmail.com or a message on Instagram at the Core Skills Pod. And just some key takeaways, just a quick recap. Feedback is a powerful tool for improvement, and try to think of it as a tool for improvement, whether you are giving the feedback or receiving the feedback. How to give and receive feedback determines its impact, right? And you get to choose how you receive it, and you get to choose how you give it. Growth comes from embracing feedback and not fearing it. If you don't know how your behavior is being seen or received or impacting others, how will you know if something needs to be changed? This is a great opportunity to learn about yourself, to become more self-aware. Next episode, I think I mentioned this on the last episode. Next time will be our 10th episode, and we're going to recap what we've covered so far and just do a check-in. How's it going? What have we learned? What's going well? What's not worked so well? I will share some of the things that I've been working on and what's working and not working for me. And I would love to share your stories. I have a couple of stories to share. I would love some more. So if you have a story about any of the previous, if you want to let me know how your organizing is going or your time management, problem solving, communication, I would love to hear about that. I would also love to hear if, and we'll kind of do a check in, if maybe you started and then it just kind of dropped, right? It was kind of like a New Year's resolution. I'm going to listen to this podcast and make these self-improvements, but I listen to the podcast and then I don't actually take any of the actions. Let's talk about that too, because that's kind of natural. I'm trying to give you like little teeny tiny things to work on, but it's so easy. I do that too. I listen to podcasts and think, oh, yeah, I should do that. And then by the time the podcast is over, didn't actually make that change. So I get it. So if you have a story to share, please do email me, leave me a comment, send me a message, and I would love to share. Let me know if it's okay with you that I share it on a future podcast. I will do these periodically, maybe not every 10, maybe every 10. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to the Core Skills podcast. Keep learning, growing, and leveling up your skills. And I'll see you next time.